For those of you who have not seen Lincoln, it's a fairly accurate retelling of the passing of the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. That's the amendment that abolished slavery in the United States. The film itself covers the final months of both Lincoln's life and the end of the American Civil War. Giving the background of the clip itself, in Lincoln's attempt to get the amendment passed in the House of Representatives, he faced two significant challenges. The first one were the pro-slavery Democrats who were against the amendment, who were basically pro-slavery. The other big challenge were what are called the radical Republicans. So Lincoln was a Republican, and it was the Republicans who were seeking to abolish slavery. So there was a group of them called the Radical Republicans who wanted to immediately grant full rights to blacks. They didn't just want to abolish slavery, they wanted to do this thing called enfranchise them, give them the vote, full rights. And it was the convictions of this group, the Radical Republicans, that tended to threaten the support of conservative Republicans who, while they were for abolishing slavery, they were very cautious regarding radical social change. Follow? It's important for those of you who haven't seen the movie. So a key leader and spokesman for the Radical Republicans was Senator Thaddeus Stevens. I read that he was one of the most powerful, influential congressmen ever in the United States. So in the scene that we're about to see, Lincoln attempts to persuade Stevens to soften his viewpoint so as not to lose the support of the conservative Republicans. And I've got a strong language warning. There is some rough language in this scene.
Since we have the floor next in the debate, I thought I'd suggest you might temper your contribution so as not to frighten our conservative friends.
Ashley insists you're ensuring approval by dispensing patronage to otherwise undeserving Democrats.
Well, I can't ensure a single damn thing if you scare the whole House silly with talk of land appropriations, revolutionary tribunals.
When the war ends, I intend to push for full equality, the Negro vote, and much more. Congress shall mandate the seizure of every foot of rebel land and every dollar of their property. We'll use their confiscated wealth to establish hundreds of thousands of free Negro farmers, and at their side, soldiers armed to occupy and transform the heritage of traitors. We'll build up a land down there of free men and free women and free children and freedom. The nation needs to know that we have such plans.
That's the untempered version of Reconstruction. It's not quite exactly what I intend. But we shall oppose one another in the course of time. Now we're working together, and I'm asking you.
For patience, I expect.
When the people disagree, bringing them together requires going slow till they're ready to make up the difference.
Shit on the people. And what they want and what they're ready for. I don't give a goddamn about the people and what they want. This is the face of someone who has fought long and hard for the good of the people without caring much for any of them. Now I look a lot worse without my wig. The people elected me to represent them, to lead them, and I lead. You ought to try it.
I admire your zeal, Mr. Stevens, and I have tried to profit from the example of it. But if I'd listened to you, I'd have declared every slave free the minute the first shell struck Fort Sumter. Then the border states would have gone over to the Confederacy, the war would have been lost, and the Union along with it. And instead of abolishing slavery, as we hope to do in 2 weeks, we'd be watching helpless as infants as it spread from the American South into South America.
Oh, how you have longed to say that to me. You claim you trust them, but you know what the people are. You know that the inner compass that should direct the soul toward justice has ossified in white men and women, north and south, unto utter uselessness through tolerating the evil of slavery. White people cannot bear the thought of sharing this country's infinite abundance with Negroes.
A compass, I learned when I was surveying. It'll point you true north from where you're standing. But it's got no advice about the swamps, deserts, and chasms that you'll encounter along the way. If in pursuit of your destination you plunge ahead heedless of obstacles and achieve nothing more than to sink in a swamp, what's the use of knowing true north?
In the pursuit of your destination, if in the pursuit of your destination you plunge ahead heedless of obstacles and achieve nothing more than to sink in a swamp, what's the use of knowing true north? So he's saying that we can have standards, but if we're not aware of all the other issues involved, we could find ourselves pursuing high standards and still falling into all sorts of difficulties and trouble. We have a different kind of compass altogether, because this is far more like a GPS, in that this book provides us not only with the high standards, but it also tells us where the obstacles are, where the swamps are. It doesn't just give us high standards. There are many people who treat it that way. But that's not what we encounter in this book. And I'm hoping that's what we've seen as we've walked through it past almost 35 hours. That what we have here is a book of wisdom that provides us with an understanding of life and enables us to live it effectively. There are some very well-meaning Christians who think that in order to live truly effective lives in business, in politics, family, life in general, that you gotta learn to compromise. You gotta live in the real world, they'll say. You don't understand business, they say. You don't understand politics, they say. They're all in this book. And the problem is, when the church board member wants to cut corners, or the businessman wants to cheat, or even Lincoln, in his kind of trying to finagle the system in such a way to achieve high goals, they're not really basing their views on Scripture. And he might have been, that's besides the point. And the way the movie goes, he doesn't actually. And there's this constant thing that we're told all the time by well-meaning people, that in order to really be successful in life, even as a good person, as a godly person, you still got to cheat a little bit. Now, there are ways some Christians live where they create a version of living according to the Bible that has very high standards, that has no wisdom, no godly wisdom. That's a different problem altogether. But when you read the stories of David and Solomon, you read the prophets and what they say, when you read about Abraham and what he went through, if we allow ourselves to meditate on the law of the Lord, like Psalm 1 says, we will find that we can be healthy trees. And you end up developing the kind of shrewdness that Jesus talks about. Be innocent as doves and shrewd like serpents. I've known very, very godly, shrewd people. I've known a couple who have real godly smarts about how to live this life. But most people separate real living from the Bible in order to make life happen. I don't think it's necessary. I think we can be immersed in this book and discover the kind of wisdom that we really need to live this life.